Righty then, this is Defenders 12, the earliest issue of Defenders I own. This is the beginning of my collection. I am happy with that. I will explain why. But I will also be explaining our villain, Shamu, and why I consider this issue by Lenny Wein the start of the Steve Gerbil run. This is issue 12 from 1974. It is written by Lenny Wein with pencils by a Buscema, who is the brother of the other Buscema. What a great opening page this is. Hulk and nature. Can a man love a tree? The answer is no. Hulk starts smashing the shit out of the tree. Hulk is being attacked by the tree and rocks. And Hulk liked trees. And Hulk liked rocks before even they turned on him. Hulk thought the trees and the rocks were his friends, but now they are attacking him. But the Green Goliath's maddened words fall on deaf ears. In fact, they fall on no ears, save his own. Rocks and trees are notoriously hard of hearing. The source of this whirlpool of angry nature is Shamu. Shamu is a half-robot alien with telekinetic and telepathic powers, whom has battled the Defenders before, and will battle them never again after this. He does go on to have a bit more play as a Hulk villain at least. Shamu comes from the Marvel Monsters era, before Fantastic Four, before the resurgence of superheroes. Still, technically, the Goldie Age. He was originally called Hulk, and he appeared in an anthology tale in Journey into Misery 62 by Stanley Lee and Jack Quimby. Whatever happened to them? Like most of that period's characters, Shamu, or Hulk as he was then known, was intended as a one-off. Roger Thompson brought him back over 10 years later in one of the most early stories starring the Defenders, Marvel Footage Issue 3. Roger Thompson thought it would be fitting to have him face the new and far more famous Hulk. And I think that one is actually Roger Thompson's best issue with Defenders. Excellent inking by Kenny Everett. I think Andrew Ross did the art and Kenny Everett did the inking. Shamu was a great pick for a Defender's enemy, but as is often the case with things I think are sensible, there is no more of it. Shamu doesn't appear again in Defenders. Outside of maybe at a push, Kurt Busey's run, he might be in the background of an issue of that. But I will cover some of his future appearances in a bit. We have a first appearance over here. We have the debut of Velcro's Swords. It comes complete with some forgotten lore. It has naught to do with fairyland. It has naught to do with Velcro. It was carved by an ancient wizard, and Doctor Strange was the one who owned it, and he gives it to Velcro. I think we go back and say that it was always a sword, but what we have presented here is Doctor Strange gave Velcro a magical sword he had lying around his house. Velcro is thinking about leaving the Defenders, and we get a little cameo appearance by Amanda the Enchanter in a flashback, so I am happy. We finally start exploring the ship with Barbara Norris though. Velcro's suffering human host. And this sudden decision to start exploring and acknowledging that is noticeable. I won't get too into Barbara because I discussed her a lot in the reviews of issues 108 and 109. But I also regret not naming her Barbara Crampton, because if there is anyone who can be off in another dimension, being raped forever by demons and goblins, it's Barbara Crampton. But this leads us to why I start my collection here. The first 11 issues of Defenders are written by Steve Englehart, a writer I don't like, and his issues of Defenders are not an exception to that rule. He does not justify Defenders as anything more than a worse Avengers. He is writing identical stories to what he was also writing in Avengers at the time. He even brings Hawkeye across. He absolutely does not give the Defenders any identity or purpose beyond being a bit like the Avengers with different characters. Really, I do regret not naming her Barbara Crampton. That would have been perfect. Sometimes I'm just stuck with other names. I didn't think of Barbara Crampton at the time, and I am unlikely to ever talk about Barbara Norris at great depth again, so she will forever be Barbara Norris. Doctor Strange senses Hulk is in distress, and so the two heroes set off to find their comrade in arms. They arrive in an idyllic little town called Plucketville, where they are welcomed by the friendly residents, and then the mayor gives them a short tour of their fine town, only for it to be a trap. They have been duped. The town itself starts attacking the two. The pipes come alive and bind them, while an animated steamroller comes towards them for some steamrollering action. Discreetly, we get a little showcase for Velcro's new sword, which slices and destroys the steamroller. Every time I see a letters page in an early Bronze Age comic, I get worried that I am going to have to devote upwards of 5 minutes into deconstructing Kurt Busey's spiteful, entitled fanboy shtick. But there ain't none this time. I will now explain why I count this as the start of Steve Gerbill's run. This is the best starting place for his run. We have a nice, clean beginning here. A nice, clean start. A story with virtually no baggage from what came before. It's not a continuation of anything besides the series. Lenny Wein writes 5 or 6 issues, and the next 2 are tremendously important to Steve Gerbill's run. Issue 13 brings in Batman. It is the story which ushers Batman onto the team of Defenders, a character who will become one of the principal players for Steve Gerbill's run. In fact, we'll come back to this in a bit. We also have Nebulos, the villain Nebula Man. It is his first appearance, and he too will become a central villain later on in Steve Gerbill's run. Less worthy of a mention, but still relevant, is the Justice League. They too will reappear once in Steve Gerbill's run, with direct reference to that Lenny Wein story. Steve Gerbill will take over mid-story after that. A story began by Lenny Wein and then continued by Christopher Clairvoyant for an issue, and then finally Steve Gerbill will finish it and write the title from there on. During all this, we also have gigantic-sized Defenders, which there are 5 of, and Steve Gerbill was contributing to them before he took over the series. I think the first one has no Steve Gerbill, but 2, that is Satan's Son, I think Steve Gerbill co-writes that one. 3 is Steve Gerbill with Jim Starman. And then 4 and 5, they are pretty much full Steve Gerbill, but 5 has a lot of names in the credits, but it's Steve Gerbill. He is the main voice in the mix. There's also 2 issues of Marvel 2 for 1, which cross over. Then there is an annual. I'll do a graphic or something explaining the run, the order, and what issues you need. Really, if you are going to sit down and read Steve Gerbill's great run on Defenders, start at issue 12. Don't start with part 3 of the Urton Crew story. This is a beautifully positioned moment to jump on board. We begin without any continuity from previous stories making you feel uninvited to the party, and it even slowly brings you in with a very straightforward standalone issue. Where do you stand on reading runs? Do you just read the stuff by the writer or the artist you are interested in, or will you make efforts to better accommodate story or readability or whatever? To me, I think of Steve Gerbill's run, and it is beginning here. It has a couple of issues by Lenny Wein, 1 by Christopher Clairvoyant. It has all 5 gigantic-sized Defenders. It has issues of Marvel 2 for 1. It has that Harvey the Duck Treasury Edition. The bottom set of panels on this page, that is actually Batman. His debut in an issue of Defenders. He is a mysterious caller to Doctor Strange's house. That will continue next issue. Anyway, Shamu, he was mayor of this town. He was mayor of Plucketville. He has now bound the two defenders like they are Wonder Woman, and he is about to explain how he survived their last encounter, because this was back in the day where every Marvel villain had to explain how they came back. But I will use it as a chance to explain the rather paltry life of Shamu that follows this. He returns to plague Hulk in an annual, and that is also written by Lenny Wein. He then fights Thing and Wonder Man in an issue of Marvel 2 for 1. And then his most substantial appearances are as an adversary to She-Hulk's. If becoming the main opponent of fourth wall breaking She-Hulk's wasn't bad enough for his rep, it was dead pills after that. Last I remember, he was in a Hulk annual again. Jeff Parkman wrote it, and it had Unpausable Man in it as well. After the streak of Jason Byrne's She-Hulk's, Dead Pills, and Unpausable Man, they found the only thing further down the totem pole. He was in a story by the gay man that wants Storm to peg him. There is some promise with him as a Defender's villain. He is powerful enough that he can take down the team. We've seen him do that in this one issue. And it makes more sense to have a team fight him because there isn't any immediate, obvious solution. There's no tremendously clear way to beat him. We have things that can stop him, be it Hulk's superior strength or Doctor Strange's magic. But as easily as that can take him down, Shamu can stop them and rob them of their advantage. As we get further down the line with Defenders, we get more members that I think would be fun to have spar against Shamu. Luke Cage's, that could be great action. Moongarden, telepath battle right there. Russia Girl as the brain surgeon backgrounds, that could factor into it somehow. Hulk is quite fast in his dominance of Shamu, but the real highlight comes after the fight. It also comes after 11 issues of Steve Engeltine and 3 issues of Roger Thompson having the team bicker and argue and not like each other. Lenny Wen goes the opposite way and announces that actually, after all, maybe Hulk and Doctor Strange are friends. I give this one a decent recommendation. I wish we got to see Shamu and Defenders after this. There's stuff to do with them. And weirdly, a lot of Steve Gerbill's stories do seem to be ideas that could have worked with Shamu. I give it 7 thumbs up today.